I'm Amanda Knox.
And I'm Christopher Robinson.
And this
is Who's Right? Between our usual Labyrinths episodes, we sit down to debate something quite serious.
Or silly.
And ask you, who is right?
It's me.
It's me.
It's me.
It's clearly me.
No, definitely me.
It's me.
Me?
No, me.
It's me.
How could it be anyone but me?
Says the man sleeping on the couch.
So, what are we going to do when I die before you? Are you going to honor my wishes or not?
So I'm going to take the honoring the wishes route here. You thought I would not honor, but I'm actually going to take the honoring the wishes part because I'm going to, I've always thought of, especially,
because what I want is a giant marble tomb. So with a guard who stands out there 24 hours a day, rotation. To fill you in, the topic today for Who's Right is about grief traditions.
Yes.
Which are good, which are whack. Should you wear all black for a year?
Right.
Should you have a wake or a funeral? But also, what's the whole deal with
honoring the wishes of the dead if they're no longer here to appreciate or not, whether or not you honored them?
And how does that play into the grieving process in general?
Right. So I actually think that a funeral, especially in terms of like, let's respect the wishes of the dead, how they want their funeral to go. Mm-hmm. That seems to me like actually a really crucial part of the grieving process for the living. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because once a person is gone, the only remnant of them in the universe, besides their decomposing body, is the memory of that person in the minds of the people who knew them. Mm-hmm. And I think there's actually like something very special about a funeral which brings together everyone who knew this person or everyone who knew them in a significant way enough that they would want to attend the funeral, where all of the people get to attend and it's as if they manifest the memory of this person in everyone's different minds is the closest thing that we can come to like manifesting that person in reality just a little bit longer in order to say goodbye. And I think that that's actually really beautiful. My favorite thing about every funeral is when people get up and tell stories about the person who is gone, even if they're like super sad. Like I've been to incredibly sad funerals. I went to my cousin's funeral who died when he was 16 in a tragic accident. And like everyone was shocked. No one was prepared to have that funeral. And like the most beautiful part of it in this utterly tragic situation was everyone talking about, like telling stories about this kid who we all loved and wanted everything for. And it makes me sad now still thinking about it. But like it was so beautiful to like know that that person was a part of all of us at least one last time. And I like the idea of like incorporating that person's wishes into that ceremony because it's their little like last touchstone. It's like they're, how we had our wedding just the way we wanted it and made all of our family just do what we dress up in costume because that was us. Like it seems like the funeral is a last chance to have that person have an impression upon other people, even if they're not there technically to appreciate it.
Although I think technically they might be. And in a non-ghost way.
Because we just watched Beetlejuice and now we just believe in Beetlejuice world.
I'm not arguing for the existence of ghosts here. But I may have talked about this before on the podcast at some point, but one of my favorite books is I Am a Strange Loop by Douglas Hofstadter. Right. And his theory of consciousness is that we are all these sort of recursive nesting loops of awareness. That's kind of what consciousness is. And that
I am, therefore I am, therefore I am, therefore
I am. Yeah, it's just a very recursive, circular system that is paying attention to external states and internal states, which are themselves paying attention to external and internal states, and so on. And what he says is that, in his theory, is that all of us have sort of conceptual models of all the things in the world, including of ourselves. And so what your sense of self is, what your I is just a sort of model, a mental model of that self, right?
And the point being that other people also have mental models of you in their minds.
And you have mental models of all the people you know in your mind. And in this terminology, it's almost like when you get to know somebody, you make a copy of you start building a copy in your own mind of a sort of mental model of what their self is. But if that's all the self really is just a sort of mental model, then the longer you get to know somebody, the more complex and intricate your mental model of them becomes.
So it starts out as a little stick figure.
Yeah.
And then you start drawing in the details.
And what that means is that the people who know you really well, they have higher fidelity copies of your self-loop, you might say, in Hofstadter's terms. And the way I think of a funeral in that analogy is that whenever you find yourself saying, it's what he would have wanted, another way to think of that is, I have a copy of his consciousness running in the background of my brain, and I'm going to let my own consciousness, my own self, step out of the driver's seat for a minute and let his self, which is a lower fidelity copy than was the one in his brain, but enough for me to know what his agency would have wanted, right? I'm going to let him steer the ship for a minute. And in that sense, you can actually think of all the people gathering together at the funeral as that person still having agency, even.
Right.
Like they are steering the ships of all these different bodies to come together in one place and kind of reassemble themselves like T-1000, after he's been shattered into 1,000 pieces.
Right. But is it wasteful? Do we really need it?
Well, the thing I was going to object to what you started with was that I agree with you that that's a beautiful moment and a beautiful tradition. But what if the person's wishes are to not have that? What if they say, I don't want a big hullabaloo, I don't want a big party or a funeral, I don't want people coming up and sharing their memories of me, that's embarrassing to me, I want to just be put in the ground and that's it. Now, do you say, well, you're dead now and I want to share your memories?
I mean, maybe you find a loophole and instead of having the funeral, you just get all your guy friends and have a beer and tell stories about him anyway because you're like, dude, we gossip about you and you're not around anyway.
Once you include beer, then it's awake.
Yeah, then it's awake and then you're fine. I also was going to say I actually kind of like the traditions of mourning outside of the funeral too, like wearing black for a year, say. I actually kind of think that those are cool because I like the idea of signaling to other people in a non-verbal way that you are going through a rite of passage. And in the same way that we wear an outfit to graduation, I kind of like the idea, and I like the idea that it's a prolonged thing because not all rites of passage are just you walk through a gate and you get a diploma. Some of them involve processing, and I like the idea of giving space to that and having a signal that you give out to other people to say, this is the rite of passage I'm going through right now. Respect that. Respect this space that I'm in, which is very special and precious and sacred. The flip side of that, though, and when it becomes distorted, is when you feel pressured to do those rites of passage when, for whatever reason, you don't feel compelled to go through that.
I don't want to wear black.
You don't want to wear black. You don't want to not date for a year because your husband died from cancer. Whatever it may be. I don't think people should feel pressured and judged for not doing it. But I love the idea of there being a space to if you want to be a Victorian ghost for a year because your husband died in a car accident, all power to you.
It also does a nice thing where it creates a container for the grief that then gives you an impetus to move on from the grief. If the tradition actually says do this for a year or do this for 6 months or whatever, then it's okay, It's been a year. It's
I
time
did
for me
my
to,
time.
It's time for me to stop wearing black.
Yeah, and then
If
you're
it-
like,
you
okay,
know,
I did it. I
if it
did
doesn't
it.
have an end moment, then I think you run into this like, I think you can fall into the trap of like, well, I'm just sort of endlessly grieving.
Right. Or avoiding processing because you still have to get along with your day or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
This is why I also get so mad that we don't have something like this for when people have kids. Because like so much is happening when you have a kid. Not only are you suddenly taking care of another life form freaking exists. Like that's a really big deal. And also the you that did not have kids died. And I feel like there's like a really, you
have to mourn party animal Amanda.
Yeah, you kind of do.
Staying up until 10 p.m. Amanda.
And our, like, at least Western society does not give space for that. Like, they're just like, okay, hurry up and breastfeed the thing because you got to get back to work. And it's just like, whoa. Like, so much of my life is changing right now. Why can't I just live in this rite of passage?
So you're talking about grieving the loss of your previous life.
Yeah.
And do we need grief rituals around
that
kind of thing?
I absolutely think
like,
so.
Like what,
it's like a celebration of a next stage, but also a grieving of a past stage. You're never going to be a kid again, or you're never going to be...
is graduating from like high school or college one of those things that's like, okay, like my life is not going to consist of the college life anymore.
I think that's kind of inherent in even graduation speeches. You hear like, okay, this is the this is it. Now you got this new stage of being an adult in the world.
I feel like the way people tend to grieve those losses is they just party really hard.
Yeah.
And they're just like, well, one last hurrah, right?
Right.
What do you think about one last hurrah type? People essentially is a grief ritual. I never thought of it that way, but anytime
it's
you're like...
It's an expenditure of that like energy, that bottled up energy.
It's like, we're never going to be able to live this life again. Let's go really hard one night and party our asses off,
Right. School's out forever.
Yeah, right? But is that stupid? Is there a better way to do that?
Wear black. I'll never be young again.
Yeah.
What would be a great way to grieve the loss of like your young academic life?
Let's take parenting, for instance. You brought that up. Like, maybe there should be some grief ritual as you're about to give birth, or as the pregnancy is progressing. Like, maybe there should be some tradition where you somehow mark the loss of your independent selves prior to the kids. And you grieve the fact that you're not just going to be, because it hits you. I think it hit us in a way that we were unprepared for it. Yeah. Even though we sort of intellectually knew and
we even had like an unconventional baby shower where like I designed it specifically to be like a wedding ceremony where we were like committing to our kids. Yeah. Right? Which these are the vows I make. These are the vows I'm making now that I'm entering into parenthood. Like that was a really nice thing. And then like all the people who already had kids were sort of jokingly, your life is over. Yeah. And we were like, that's not very nice. But like maybe there was a nicer way of conveying that. Like maybe
you're not going to be able to go out to see a movie together for
we're trying to go
10
see
years.
Like, yeah, exactly. So I wonder if they were, instead of like jokingly be like, your life is over, instead you can have a grief ritual part of it.
What does it look like if not some last hurrah of like...
binging?
Yeah, I mean, that's
don't
how
love
people...
binging as celebrating.
Think about, God, now I'm seeing it everywhere. Like bachelor parties and bachelorette parties. Those are grief rituals for your single self.
Right.
Right. And
one last hurrah, one last stripper, one last,
right?
one last mistake potentially.
Yeah. Nobody
really
talks
down.
about the bachelor party as a grief ritual.
Well, yeah, it totally
that's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You are mourning the loss of independent Brad.
All your friends are calling you, the ball and chain. You're about to get locked down with the ball and chain. The women are like, here's your penis cake, one last real penis.
Yeah. So, what if not the one last hurrah model, then what should the bachelor party be? how do you celebrate and also
grieve.
mourn what it's like to be a single person if you're about to enter into a world in which you don't get to live that life anymore?
I mean, I don't want it to be like you either meditate or you binge drink. There's got to be another way.
Yeah.
But I maybe it's just maybe you do just have to binge. I don't know. Like, it seems appropriate to me.
I mean, what if you take the funeral model?
What do you mean? Like everyone gets to design their own, or
No,
what?
I mean like.
Oh, like people have to come together and
Like
sort of
you get
celebrate.
Yeah.
How you
come together and people tell stories and they celebrate
when you were a dumb kid or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone sort of acknowledges we're so excited for this next journey for you, and here are all these funny stories about when you were an idiot,
and when you were a dipshit.
Irresponsible. Yeah. Go forth and be responsible.
But would that at a bachelor party then would that involve like tales of your promiscuity?
Yeah. Gosh, I'm in the middle of helping design my little sister's bachelorette party, and now I'm thinking we need to have a tales of your promiscuity element. Although she's locking down. She is not leaving anything to chance. She has it all figured out what she wants. She's the person who has her funeral all figured out.
Does she?
Oh yeah.
Let's get back to actual funerals here, which is where we started.
Okay. But what we started with was grief rituals, and we identified that there are many things that we grieve throughout life for which we should and maybe already do have rituals.
We have, I would argue, not great rituals.
Right. Being obnoxious is not a great way to celebrate or mourn anything.
Yeah. But, I want to know what you want your funeral to look like or what you want to happen after you die.
Hey, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. This podcast would not exist without your support.
We're all navigating our own personal maze.
And you don't have to be stuck in a prison cell to feel trapped in your own life.
Our mission with Labyrinths is to find growth and resilience through trauma, and we do that with a commitment to our core values.
Curiosity in a time of outrage. Compassion as a tool for understanding.
And the courage to ask hard questions and avoid easy answers. Please consider becoming a patron. Visit patreon.com/KnoxRobinson. For as little as $5 a month, you can get ad-free episodes and join our online community.
We even offer signed books and live monthly video hangouts. So please, grow with us. Join our community. Visit patreon.com/KnoxRobinson. I'm one of those annoying people that it's like, I have not even thought of this because I'm going to be dead, so what do I care? I suppose...
I mean, that's kind of in contravention of what you were saying earlier,
I mean, it's like, do what you guys want to do, man. It's for you, is what I feel like, I guess what I would love is for my body to be donated to science. I'd like the actual physical part of me to be useful. If my organs are still working, definitely give those to somebody. That would make me feel great. If any part of my body could help another person after I die, I am stoked.
Even if they're just like a freak who loves to eat human liver?
Of course you would think that. Of course you want to be eaten.
No, you said if there's any way it could help anybody.
You know what?
I'm just taking your statement to its logical, absurd conclusion.
Wait, I'm actually considering this now. If my liver is not useful to help someone be alive, and it's also not useful in a scientific context, and someone still wants to eat it, I think I am 100% pro them eating it.
Okay, well, aside from that absurd scenario, like
I write it in my will.
Yeah, you really don't care? You don't have any preference? You just would, like, if you died before me, you just want me to just decide what to do?
Yeah, I think it would be for you. I think that I would have a lot of thoughts about what I would want to have happen in the lead up to my death.
Yeah, that's for you.
That's for
right?
me.
But what about the whole thing about you still existing in some kind of way and your agency still exerting its pull on all the people who knew you, you know?
I mean,
you wouldn't want that shared memory ritual?
I think that would be nice, but I'm not going to mandate it. I think it would be very nice for you guys. You know what is a big compliment, though?
What?
When Koshin from the Puget Sound Zen Center, name drop, said that he really liked my chanting and that he was keeping me in mind for his funeral.
Oh, really?
I was like, damn, bro. That is a very fine compliment there. You want me to chant at your funeral. That's a compliment. You know it's a compliment. That
might be the king of all compliments.
I know.
Any compliment that's like, I would like you to X
at my funeral.
Yeah. You play a mean bagpipe. I would love for you to bagpipe at my funeral.
Right? You know what? Actually,
your pole dancing is exquisite.
Pole dance. Maybe we should think of it as that. Maybe the funeral, if I were to imagine what do I want for my funeral, maybe what I would want is to show the people who are important to me that they are important to me by giving them jobs. Like celebrating whatever it is about them and then asking them to bring that whatever it is that they do, piano or whatever, to the or to the funeral itself. I think that would be really nice.
What about having them roast you now that you're dead?
Roast me?
Like an epic roast.
I mean, I am now imagining you doing that. So, like, your eulogy to me would just be roasting me. And you know what? Sure. Like, well, fine. What about you, sir? We know you want to be eaten, but anything else?
I don't want to be eaten, no.
This is not the first time you've brought up being eaten, though. You have absolutely talked about being eaten before.
I'm going to go on record right now and say I have no fixation with having to be eaten after I'm dead, okay? I don't care what younger me said. I've already mourned his death. I think I probably am in the donate to science camp, although a part of me...
Do you want to be like in a mushroom plant?
Yeah, turned into a tree or something.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, what about the cryo-freeze your body in case they can revive you thing? That complicates it a little bit.
That does complicate it. It does seem... I think right now my problem with that is it seems wasteful. Like, there's a lot of energy that goes into preserving a dead body on the off chance that it might be able to be resuscitated.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to wait for someone to, like...
So you're anti-cryopreservation.
Read, like, the Book of the Dead and resurrect me like the mummy. You know, like...
All right, let's set aside the cryo question.
Yeah, let's put that aside.
That can be a different who's right.
Although that's an interesting way to not grieve.
Mm-hmm. I'm just not dead yet. Yeah.
Do you think people have funerals when they do cryo freezing, or is it more like a "I'll see you later" funeral?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Bon voyage.
Bon voyage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're setting aside the cryo thing. So
Damn it.
Aside from that, I like the idea of my skeleton being on display somewhere. That'd be cool.
Of course you do. You just want to be hanging in our house.
Yeah. Skull on the mantle. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That is pretty awesome.
Right?
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. I like that. It's very spooky.
Right?
I like how spooky that is. Eureka would love that.
Right? You know? Gild it.
You want to gild it?
Actually, now that I think about this, I would like you to gild my skull.
I'm going to open up the phone book and see what service does that.
Look, you can donate the brain, all the organs and stuff. That can go to science.
Uh-huh.
But not the bones.
Not the bones.
Sorry, bone scientists.
Okay.
You know? I want you to gild the skull.
Okay, what do you want me to do with the rest of your bones?
Turn them into jewelry.
Wait, do you want me to like make you into a chandelier?
Ooh. Oh my God, yes. Just like the Capuchin monks.
Yeah, totally.
You know, in Rome.
Totally.
Yeah. Or there's an ossuary in outside of Prague called Kutna Hora, where that's another like some crazy monks built a bunch of sculptures out of human bones.
Yeah. You know,
people who died in the
we don't
plague.
have enough human bone furniture.
Like, you know what? Like, I dare you to go into the crypt of the Capuchin monks in Rome and not just be amazed at the beauty and that it's such a complex emotion.
Yes,
when
it is.
You're reckoning with like the mass death that provided all the material to make that art.
Yeah, and like all of those were people.
Yeah.
All of those were people.
And there they are, turned into a fucking chandelier.
Yeah.
Like a literal chandelier of human remains.
Yeah.
And it's made entirely of pelvic bones or something.
Yes, so it's like 100 people's pelvic bones.
Yeah.
It's wild. And
it both devalorizes the human life in a way because you're just like
cobbling together.
Yeah, it's just like it's weirdly seems not sacred in a way that I actually like because it's like dude,
it's also just bones.
We're all just atoms and we scatter and our atoms move on to do other things.
But also it seems like it makes it really sacred because you're like, I can't just throw these away.
Right.
I've got to make something amazing with them.
Well, and it turns it into beauty.
Yeah. And then like people are visiting those tombs to this day.
Right.
Like in a way honoring the dead.
Because, I felt reverence.
Yeah.
For
and
the
when you
people
go
who died
in there, like they're very specific, like, you know, you have to cover up, you have to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just sort of like in awe. I feel like inspiring awe is a nice idea.
Yeah. I feel like during this Who's Right, if you're watching it on video, Charlie, our assistant here, should probably put in some photos of the Capuchin monks.
Yes.
You got that, Charlie?
Thanks, Charlie.
So, yes, we've settled on my skull will be gilded and it will be on the mantle. You know, passed down to the grandkids, whatever, right?
Do you want it
There's
to
Grandpa,
like have?
you know?
Do you want it to have like a little like thought bubble that I can like hang next to it? We could like put different thought bubbles.
I'd like you to, mechanize the jaw.
So I can, so it's like the fish on the wall that like turns and is like sings a song. Wait, you need to then record yourself saying stuff.
You know, I don't need to.
What?
We've got a vast archive of my voice saying stuff.
Okay. So it's just randomize it?
No, use AI to in the future. Pick through
Finally.
the audio archive.
An ethical use of AI is
yeah. Find appropriate things for my gilded skull head to say.
This is amazing. I kind of want this to happen to me too.
I got you.
What I would love is for our heads to be like talking to each other on the mantle.
You know how people like will taxidermy their pets?
Yeah.
Don't taxidermy me.
No, gross.
That's gross.
Gross.
You know, but like there is a style of taxidermy that is, it's the European style, I think, where they just, they strip the deer's head of all its organic tissue and just mount the skull.
Right.
Right? Like even just a mounted skull would be cool. But I think better is not on a
yeah, I don't want to look
wall.
like I hunted you.
Yeah. Is this creepy?
Are we creepy? Maybe it's just because we're nearing Halloween, but I'm feeling extra spooky, and that sounds really fun.
And we did just watch Beetlejuice.
Watch Beetlejuice.
But also, the utilitarian philosopher Jeremy Bentham,
Why are you always name dropping?
What do you mean?
I just feel like in our conversations.
I'm trying to impress philosophy bros,
Okay,
That's
fine.
right.
Continue. Because you know that names mean nothing to me.
Okay, well, he's one of the founders of utilitarianism.
Okay,
right?
fine.
But in his will, I believe, you can fact check me on this if you want, but he wanted to have his skeleton like preserved and on display at his university, which I believe they fulfilled for a very long time.
And what happened? Why isn't he still on display? Did it disintegrate?
Don't know the answer to that. Not sure. Maybe
I
it
feel
still
like
is.
that's kind of cool.
Right? And he's like in the board meetings, it's like, there's Bentham, What do you think, Jeremy? Yeah.
I do like the idea of you being able to pass by and just be like, what's up?
It's a little bit like having a statue of yourself, but cooler.
Yeah. Yeah. No, screw statues, just your remains.
Your remains. Yeah. I mean, this is why, like, being cremated and turned to ash, which a part of me also is like, that's good for
We're
you.
impermanent.
Yeah, I like that aspect of it too. Being scattered, there's something appealing about that. Because especially
I do feel bad for like our great grandchildren or something who are like handed down the skull, and then
you feel bad.
Well,
oh my
like,
God, how lucky.
Well, but also, what if they don't like the skull, but they can't just throw away the skull?
Like you're burdening them.
Yeah,
with this...
you're burdening them with a gilded skull.
Well, and especially if it's the great grandchildren, if this is a tradition that forms, they're going to be inheriting several skulls.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, here's the barrel full of skulls.
Yeah, here's the skulls of all your forebears. Display them on your mantle.
You've got 7 chandeliers in your house now. So I don't know. Maybe this.
You know what? Like, I'm okay with them dropping my skull off at a Goodwill at some point, if that's, you know what I mean? Like,
okay, or is there another ritual down the line where they like finally put it to rest?
Where they melt the gold off of my gilded skull and repurpose it into something else and shatter the bones?
Wait.
What?
How am I supposed to be gilding your skull? I was just going to like, take that gold paper and just sort of dab it on.
What? You were going to gold leaf my skull? That's not what we agreed on.
Okay, what?
It's a good thing we are discussing this now.
I was going to make a craft project out of it.
Oh, my God, no. Gold leafing is
okay, so how do
fine for what it is, but not for this.
So you just want me to, like Game of Thrones, pour gold all over your skull?
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, you need to go to a professional metallurgist of some kind.
God, this is going to be so expensive.
And it has to be real gold, and
it has the jaw still has to be able to.
So, like when you gold plate something, I don't exactly know how it's done, but it's like a chemical process that causes the gold atoms to like bond onto the surface of the thing, right?
Okay.
So it's basically like gold plating, and the question is like, how thick do you gold plate it?
Right.
Right.
How thick do you want it plated now that we have it? Now that we're having the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to burn a bunch of money, but like.
At least
it's not,
$1,000.
I mean, it's not something that's going to be handled frequently. Like when you have something like a watch that's gold plated, it has to be plated thick enough that like wear and tear isn't going to rub away the gold plate. Presumably, this is a display object, so
right.
But
its jaw's moving.
And let's just be realistic here. I don't need the jaw to move or to say funny things.
All right. You just need it to be gold.
I just need it to be gilded. I've walked us back now. Okay. You know what? A bunch of you out there are going to do this.
Yes, I think we've inspired a movement.
I'm patient zero.
All right, so I think we're pro grief ritual.
I think we've settled on the fact that we want more grief rituals in our society. And that we have recognized many celebrations as, in fact,
grief rituals,
unrecognized grief rituals.
Yeah.
And that recognizing them as such might help us improve what they look like.
Yeah.
And
even like a person's 50th birthday, remember, like they used to do it with black balloons because you're over the hill. Again, that was sort of like a joking grief ritual, but actually it kind of is a grief ritual. Like, you're probably not even going to make it to 100, so actually you are more than halfway through your life.
Yeah.
And who knows? So maybe we shouldn't, be so flippant about the fact that, grief is a regular part of life that we should process and not, belittle it.
I think that there's a way to, carve up a pie of all the things we care about in this moment. So, you could donate your organs.
Yeah.
Right? You could give parts of your body to science. Mm-hmm. You could preserve the skull to be a gilded object on the mantelpiece. I think we need to turn it over to the audience.
Yeah, probably.
What is your preferred grief ritual? How do you want your funeral to go?
Do you think other people should you ever respect someone's grief ritual choices?
They're never going to know unless you believe in ghosts.
Know. But
And
Who
if you
knows?
do believe in ghosts, maybe that's a way to spite them.
Right.
Ha ha. And what I really want to know is, come on, gilded skull.
Yeah, who's going to gild their skull?
Yeah.
It's a new industry. I'm going to start a business.
All right. Well, you know where to find us.
On Instagram at AmamaKnox.
At MC Carbon.
On X at Amanda Knox.
Are we really saying X now?
I think so. That's what it is. We have to
On
grieve Twitter.
X. Formerly Twitter. I'm still saying formerly Twitter.
Okay,
I'm just
fine.
in that grief ritual.
Okay.
At Man Under Bridge.
And at our website, Knox. Oh, no, wait. And at AmandaKnox.com.
See you next time.